The Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the 16th chapter. Now when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" And when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had already been rolled back. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side. They were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be afraid, for you are looking for Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. Look, he has been raised. He is not here. Look, there is the place that they laid him. But go now and tell his disciples and Peter that he's going ahead of you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he said to you." So they went out and fled from the tomb, for terror and amazement had seized them. And they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. What a strange ending to this story. I mean, when you think about the breadth of the story that St. Mark has told, it's kind of a strange ending that we just heard. Because it begins with this sense of suddenness, and that suddenly there is John the Baptist, and suddenly there are people getting baptized, and suddenly Jesus shows up, unexpectedly even. And Jesus gets baptized, and then unexpectedly he starts doing miracles. And he's teaching people. And there's this kind of, suddenly this chaos kind of circling around him, and he attracts followers to him. And all of this is happening just like boom, 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 all over the place. And then there's these arguments, this kind of headbutting with authority. It's different. And it makes you go, wow, there's something really going on here. And then as the story was remembered last week, there was this entry into Jerusalem. He rides in like the king. And that confusion on Thursday and the terror that descended upon them on Friday, and the confusion and terror as they watched him die. And then today, a strange story, a strange way to end this story. As you kind of listen to the story, these women, they gather together the things necessary to finish the burial rites. And they're coming at dawn because the Sabbath had come, they weren't able to finish, and so here they come. And on their way, it's not so much like they're asking each other questions, they're really, the tone is kind of whining. "Oh, we forgot the stone. Who's going to move the stone? How are we going to move the stone? There's that stone there. What are we going to do about the stone?" They get there. The stone's gone. And they see this, the implied image is that there's an angel in there. But St. Mark is clear, it's not an angel like St. Michael, Archangel, big God. He says young man. And you can imagine, this must be like an underling. And here's this guy who must have settled out there for a while. Maybe he's been sitting there in the tomb, maybe scratching his navel, maybe going over his head what he's supposed to say. Because it almost feels that way. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, the crucified one, and now he's the resurrected one, and you're supposed to go to Galilee, and you tell the disciples, and you tell Peter that he is risen. Got it? And they come out of the tomb, and they're afraid. They run away, and they don't tell anybody anything. And after all of this, that's the way the story ends. And they don't say anything to anybody because they're afraid. It's a strange story. sitting there who was listening to what the story was, everybody who listened to the story, they all know in their minds they told somebody. And if they hadn't told anybody, none of us would be here. We wouldn't be sitting in church, right? They wouldn't have been listening to the story. We wouldn't be sitting. If they told nobody, it would have been the end of it. And so they all know, we all know that they told somebody. But I imagine that somehow, over the span of 2 millennia, St. Mark has been reaching out to us to say something very, very specific at this end of this story. Because the story doesn't really end there, right? And somebody at some point kind of added a proper ending to Mark's gospel. Jesus shows up, he sees the disciples, he sends them on their way, tells them this person to be disciples, and make more Christians, and all that sort of the other gospels that way. Proper ending. But I think Mark understands something different. The story didn't end there. Because the story is brought forward, and today it hangs in the balance. Because it isn't about those people. It isn't about Mary Magdalene and Salome and Mary the mother of James. Really, the story is brought forward, and it's asked of us. And it's asked, what do you believe? And are you going to run away? Are you going to leave this place in fear and tell nobody? Because if we leave this place in fear and tell nobody, the story ends. There is no more. It concludes with us. And before you answer that question too quickly, before you answer the question that St. Mark puts forward to us too quickly, I'd offer to you, it's not as simple as what it looks on the face of it. And I know about that, right? And, every Sunday I put on this shirt, I strap on this collar, and I come, and I talk about Jesus. And there's other times during the week I go places, and I talk about Jesus. But there's a big difference between talking about Jesus and believing in the resurrection. We all can talk about, a lot of people talk about Jesus. And we know things to talk about Jesus. We can all carry on a conversation about Jesus. But do we believe the resurrection? Do we believe that Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified, is alive? And do we believe that that makes a difference in our world? You see, because every time we turn our backs on the hungry and the naked and the broken, we deny the power of the resurrection. Every time we hear stories of bigotry or stories that demean other people, and we kind of chuckle at them, we deny the power of the resurrection. Every time we put our priorities and our lives and our desires first before anybody else, with no care of anybody else, we deny the power of resurrection. We can talk about Jesus and deny the resurrection. We can talk about Jesus and watch the world go past us as if it is not our concern. In doing so, deny the power of resurrection. And every time we open our lives a little bit, so we can let some of ourselves out, to be able to hear the cries of those whose lives are broken, to hear the cries of those who are hungry, to hear the cries of those who have illnesses that they cannot bear alone. Every time we open our lives that way and we remember those stories and those miraculous things Jesus done and allow them to come through us, every time we allow our glimmer of that resurrection to bring into the world. Every time we do more than talk about God, but live His world. We affirm that we are not afraid, and that we believe the crucified one is the resurrected one. You see, I think St. Mark understood brilliantly that the story does not end with a group of men and women in Galilee. The story is brought forward to us, and it asks us that question: do we believe that Jesus is raised from the dead? Do we believe that the crucified one has been brought back to life? Do we believe that our lives have the potential of being more than we can imagine them to be? Do we believe that our lives are bigger than our own self-purposes? Do we believe in the power of the resurrection? Or do we run away from this place and say nothing because we